Yeah, you know I'm a beast. You know I'm a beast. Welcome to the feast. My whole team off the leash. We don't know defeat. Everybody eat. Hey, you know I'm a beast.
Hey, what's up everyone? So this is another episode of Kevisto Reacts. Today we are reacting to the coolest cars the rest of the world never got to see. So this is cars that came specifically to South Africa or was manufactured only in South Africa. And this is a cool video done by Garage Campbell. So I'll also put the link to his description box below for his channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's see how cool this video is gonna be.
V8 family sedan, BMW M cars that Germany never built, and a certain car that stayed in production for 25 years after the rest of the world had moved on. These are 10 insane South African cars that the rest of the world never got. Now, before we get into the list, we need to talk about why South Africa ended up with cars like these. And it wasn't just random, because from the 1950s through to the early 1990s, South Africa was politically isolated from the rest of the world and placed under economic sanctions due to the apartheid regime. This meant that the country had to heavily rely on local manufacturing and engineering, and at the same time, we were and still are a country that's completely obsessed with motorsport.
Local boy Yodi Sheku and his Ferrari prepare for the start of the South African Grand Prix.
Wait, so it actually... I never actually thought that there was Grand Prix at this time, like in 1970s. I know the Kyalami still exists, or exists still up until now, but like there were Grand Prix back in those days. Like I never knew.
At Kyalami. Over 90,000 spectators have turned out to see the big names of motor racing compete in the third Grand Prix of the season.
Touring cars, Group 1, Group N, if it raced, it mattered. And that combination created something really unusual. So manufacturers couldn't always import the cars that they wanted, so instead, well, they had to build their own. And no, I'm not talking about watered down versions of what was already available elsewhere in the world, but completely different cars altogether. And that's how you end up with homologation specials. Now, you'll hear that word homologation quite a lot in this video, and all it really means is this. To go racing, manufacturers had to sell a certain number of road cars, usually around 100 to 200, that shared the same DNA as the race car. So if they wanted to win, they had to sell something pretty wild to the public. So some of the cars on this list were built to win championships, some were built because the rules forced it, and some of these exist purely because engineers were given just enough freedom to go completely crazy. So I'll be ranking these cars based on a mix of engineering madness, motorsport impact, cultural significance, and just pure badassness. And yes, there will be disagreement, but let's get into it. Okay, number 10. Now if I asked you which car first introduced the famous split rear window, most enthusiasts would immediately say the 1963 Corvette Stingray Coupe, and they'd be completely wrong.
Wrong.
Because a small South African company actually beat Chevy to it by an entire year. This is the GSM Flamingo, produced in 1962. Now this is easily the oldest and probably the least well-known car on this list today, but it's hugely significant. Because unlike everything else on the list today, this wasn't built by a global manufacturer. This was a fully South African car developed by GSM. And at the time, GSM was only the second car manufacturer in South Africa. And the Flamingo, well, that was their flagship. A lightweight fiberglass bodied sports coupe, and yes, that's where the name comes from, Glass Sport Motors. And you know what? It was built right here in Cape Town. Early Flamingos featured a 1.74 Taurus engine producing a whopping 55 kilowatts, while later models utilized the 63 kilowatt 1.5 liter Ford Cortina GT engine. And with those figures, it sure wouldn't have won many drag races. But at 555 kilograms for racing models and just about 739 kilograms for road-going models and a low driving position, it definitely was live. And you know what? It wasn't just a cool idea. It actually worked. These cars were super successful in local motorsport, and more than 70 units were actually exported to the UK, which is pretty wild when you consider where they come from. Oh, and if you think,
does those cars even still exist? Do we even get those? Are there even cars that does the flamingo, has anyone ever seen a flamingo before? Because I have never. This is the first time I've heard about this car, like ever. Have anyone ever seen anyone like or anything like this? Just let me know. Keep in the comment sheets below.
This is just some obscure footnote in automotive history. Well, a few of these cars are owned by none other than Gordon Murray. Yes, that Gordon Murray. Unfortunately, the company folded in 1965 and the Flamingo became a bit of a what might have been story. But still, as an opening act, this is a pretty incredible place to start. Alright, coming in at number 9 is the Ford Capri Piranha V8. And this is where things start getting pretty unhinged, because someone looked at a small European coupe and thought, you know what this thing needs? A Mustang V8. So the Piranha was developed by Basil Green Motors between 1970 and 1972 with full backing from Ford South Africa, which meant that you could actually walk into a Ford dealership at the time and buy one of these things with a warranty, which is quite insane. Only around 300 or so cars were built, and they usually came in bright colors like yellow or red with blacked out bonnets. And under that bonnet sat a 5-liter Windsor V8 producing around 210 kilowatts in a car that weighs just over 1,000 kilograms. 0 to 100 is reached in around 6 seconds if the rear wheels manage to find traction. And in the early 70s, that was properly quick. And then, of course, there's the racing. Well, this car was built for Group 5 and it absolutely dominated. Driver Bobby Althoff won 13 out of 14 races in the 1970 championship, and in fact it got so out of hand that the V8s were eventually banned just to stop it from dominating. Its only real weakness? Stopping. Because the brakes were, let's just say, optimistic for something with this much power.
More power, baby!
This is definitely one of the earliest examples of South Africa saying, we're not just going to race, we're going to win by any means necessary. Now this next one might surprise you, because it's the only car on the list that's not specifically here for motorsport reasons. But when it comes to cultural impact, this one absolutely earns its place on the list. At number 8 is the Volkswagen City. Now what started
talk
life
about
as a
cars
simple
and
Mark
not talk
1 Golf
about the
somehow turned
MK1
into a 25-year production run from 1984 all the way up to 2009, and it was built right here at Volkswagen's Uitenhage plant with over 370,000 units produced. It's crazy to think that just over 15 years ago, you could actually walk into a VW dealership and buy a brand new car that essentially started production in the mid-70s, a brand new Golf Mark 1 essentially. So to keep things feeling modern, VW just kept updating it. So in 1988, you got Mark II style bumpers and a grille. In 2003, it received a Skoda Fabia dashboard. And in 2006, it got new bumpers and taillights. Now, over the years, it also gained things like fuel injection and power steering and air conditioning and so on. But the car never lost its basic honest charm. Of course, they did have a few sporty versions along the way, like the City Sport, the fuel injected City CTI, and finally the 1.8 IR and R line, which produced around 90 kilowatts at 900 kilograms, which is nothing to frown about. But the thing about this car is almost everyone in South Africa born in the 80s or 90s either owned one, learned to drive in one, or at the very least knew someone who did.
Definitely one of them. I remember my very first Golf that I had was a 1996 Golf Deco, like red. I called it a beast. Bought it from a family in Joburg. When that car was properly fast, man, it had a 1.8 block, 1.6 head. They had a nice get-back exhaust. It sounded amazing. Yeah, that was during my college days. Yeah, I still miss that car up until now. Juiced it up a bit, put some nice honeycomb grill on it, and some nice sounds, some 212s in it, some 4.6x9s. It was actually rocking quite properly back in the day. But I had to let it go when I got a 2006 Honda Civic. That was quite an awesome car. I loved it. But, you know, as fate has it, yeah, was in a bit of an accident with that car and it was a write-off. So yeah, that's life. Life goes on, bro.
And for those reasons, it certainly earns a place on this list. Okay, at number 7 is one of the weirdest BMWs ever built. So strange, in fact, that it earned the nickname
The Frankenstein sedan.
the South African E23 745i. Now you see, elsewhere in the world, you did get a 745i, but it was turbocharged. Here in South Africa, however, right-hand drive packaging made that impossible. The turbo simply didn't fit alongside the steering column. So instead of accepting that it won't work for the South African market, BMW South Africa did something completely unhinged. They decided to install the 3.5-litre M88 straight 6-cylinder engine derived from the BMW M1. You know, the one from not only BMW's first M car, but also its last true supercar. And they mounted it into a luxury 7 Series sedan. The result, 213 kilowatts sent to the rear wheels and a 0 to 100 km/h time of around 7 seconds in a leather-lined executive car. In fact, its 241 km/h top speed meant that it was the world's fastest luxury saloon at the time, but it gets even better. A race-prepped version, driven by the legendary Tony Viana himself, produced a monstrous 340 kilowatts and went on to win the 1985 Group 1 championship in what was certainly one of the most competitive Group 1 fields, beating cars like the Ford Sierra XR8, the Alfetta GTV 6 3-litre, and the Mazda RX-7. Only 209 units were built and just 17 were manuals. So, BMW says it's never built an M7, but South Africa definitely did. Now, if this list was ordered by Insanity, this car would certainly be number 1. But I tried to keep a level head. So at number 6 is the Chevrolet Forenza Can-Am, also known as the Little Chev, which is just hilarious because this thing packed quite a punch.
Yeah, pack a punch, just like me.
The Forenza came to South Africa with a humble 1250cc engine, and later its displacement was doubled as they fitted a 2.5-litre big block 4-cylinder engine into the small coupe. But then came Basil van Rooyen, at the time a Ford Piranha racer, and he decided to essentially switch sides. So he approached General Motors with an idea: build a V8 powered rival. To prove his point, he built 2 prototypes himself, stuffing Camaro-sourced V8s into 2 Forenza GT coupes. And well, GM just couldn't ignore it. Eventually, they enthusiastically approved the project, so they took a 5-litre V8 producing around 216 kilowatts and dropped it in a car that even in road trim weighed just 1100 kilograms. 0 to 100 was achieved in around 5.4 seconds, which in the early 70s was absolutely mental. That was supercar territory. Just over 100 cars were built, just enough to satisfy homologation rules, and on track, it was an absolute weapon. In 1973, it won 11 races in a row. But here's the best part. This thing was barely controllable. Can-Am owner Frikkie Esterhuizen explains it best.
En dan trek jy sommer skielik weg en jy trap hom in eerste rang, dan kom jy agter. Hy skuif links, hy skuif regs, hy wil nie reguit ry, jy leer hom ry.
So you had to feather the throttle just to keep it straight. No traction control, no safety nets, just you and utter chaos. Okay, earlier I mentioned that South Africa basically is where the M brand began. Just missing out on a podium spot is a proper sleeper, the Ford Sierra XR8.
The icon.
A car that exists because Ford took the BMW rivalry very personally. In the mid-80s, BMW was dominating Group 1 racing in South Africa, and Ford needed a response. So they built one. Ford South Africa took a humble Sierra and stuffed in a 5-liter Mustang V8. The massive engine was mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox. Power? Well, around 161 kilowatts in street trim. And during CarMag's road test, they achieved a sub 7-second 0 to 100 km per hour time, and it could easily exceed 230 km per hour. In 1984, that was serious performance. Only around 250 cars were built, and you could have it in any color, so long as it was white. I told you it's a proper sleeper. And unlike that wild Can-Am I spoke about, this thing could actually handle.
But there's the big competition just behind him as they go away. 10 laps, 40 kilometers to go, and it's foot flat.
Upgraded suspension, bigger brakes, proper engineering meant that it wasn't just fast, it was capable. So yes, other markets got sensible Sierras. In South Africa, well, we got a V8 powered touring car weapon. It's aggressive, it's loud, and it exists purely to take the fight to BMW. And you know what? That's exactly what it did. And that's exactly why it's still legendary today. Okay, coming in with third place is the mighty Opel Kadett Superboss. It wasn't built for any other reason than to dominate races. And dominate, it certainly did.
Oh, yes, it did.
Through.
In the early 90s, South African Group N racing was brutally competitive. And Opel needed something special to take on its biggest rival, BMW. So they created this, a pure homologation special. Only about 500 units were built, and it was stripped out, lightweight, and completely focused on performance. Under the bonnet sat a naturally aspirated 2-liter 16-valve engine developed with Cosworth. The engine had forged pistons, sodium-filled valves, and 276-degree cams. The road-going version produced around 125 kilowatts while weighing less than 1,000 kilograms. The Superboss also held the record for the highest torque per liter at 114 Newton meters per liter for a naturally aspirated engine, a world record that stood for nearly 2 decades until finally eclipsed by the Ferrari 458 in 2009. But the real magic, this thing featured a locally developed limited slip differential for a front-wheel drive car, a first at the time, giving it insane traction out of the corners. And on track, this thing delivered. Driven by Mike Briggs, the Superboss dominated Group N, winning back-to-back championships in 1991 and 1992. It wasn't the flashiest car on the grid, but it didn't need to be. This thing was a proper wolf in sheep's clothing, a clinical, precision-built race car for the road. And when it showed up, it meant business. Okay, the runner-up of this list is the Alfa Romeo GT-V6 3-liter. And this car exists because South Africa refused to lose. During South Africa's golden era of racing from the 80s to mid-90s, local motorsport was brutally competitive. And Alfa, they needed something to once again take on the BMWs dominating the grid. So instead of settling for the standard 2.5-liter V6, Alfa Romeo South Africa, working with Auto Delta, developed a 3-liter version of the legendary Buso V6 engine, which was built specifically for racing homologation. In road trim, it produced around 128 kilowatts and was easily identified by its distinctive bonnet scoop. Only around 200 cars were produced, and what they created was something special. Power was sent to the rear wheels, and it had near perfect weight distribution thanks to its transaxle layout. It had a sound that is still distinctive. 6 Dell Auto carburetors, no filters, just pure mechanical noise. And on track, well, this thing was dominant, winning a majority of races it entered and cementing itself as a true Mzansi motorsport icon. But more than that, this car became a poster car for many South Africans. Not a Ferrari, not a Porsche, this Alfa Romeo GT-V6 3-liter. Internationally, the Alfa Romeo GT-V6 is respected, but South Africa's version, our version is legend.
Wait for it. Dairy. Legendary.
Okay, at number 1, and I'm doing something a little sneaky here because there's no way to choose between these two. So we have a joint number 1. The BMW 333i and the BMW 325is. And to understand why these cars matter so much, you need to understand this. South Africa never officially got the E30 M3. Sanctions, right-hand drive limitations, and racing regulations meant it just wasn't available for the South African market. But BMW South Africa didn't complain. They saw this as an opportunity to build something completely unique. So, at the Roslyn plant in Pretoria, local engineers created cars that weren't just alternatives to what the rest of the world got. They were legends in their own right. The 333i was the halo car, developed with BMW M and Alpina.
And the crazy thing is the 333i still came up until the Dolphin shape, right? Till the E46. But that one still buses manufactured here in South Africa, as far as I know, right? Help me right if I have my information correct.
Took a massive 3.2 litre straight 6 engine from a 7 Series and shoved it into the lightweight E30. Only around 200 333i's were built, and the engine took up so much space that you had to choose between aircon or power steering, not both. But then there's this thing, the 325IS, the Gusheshe, which literally means fast thing. And this is where things get serious, because unlike the rest of the world, South Africa's 325IS got a 2.7 litre M20 straight 6-cylinder engine, pushing around 155 kilowatts in Evo 2 form. This thing came with a close ratio gate drag dogleg gearbox, a 25% limited slip differential, and M3 derived suspension. This wasn't just a sporty E30. This was a weapon, the people's champion, like a cold Zamalek after a long day's work.
Waters of immortality.
Built to dominate Group N racing, and after a few tough years for BMW losing out to Mike Briggs and his Opel Superboss, it came back swinging. The 325IS Evo 2 won 20 out of 24 races in 1993, but its impact goes far beyond the track. This car became a cultural icon. Spinning in township streets, drifting culture, street racing, the Gusheshe wasn't just a car, it was a statement. And even today, it's a symbol of speed, success, and respect. Together, these two aren't just great cars, they are South African legends. And that is why these two share the top spot.
Yes, it was. I'm just kind of shocked that they didn't mention. Well, you know that I'm a very big Honda guy. So, you know, back in the day when Honda's first started, well, the Blade came to South Africa mainly in Cape Town. Mercedes-Benz actually helped them just to get a little bit of an opening into the South African market, and they created a Blade AMG variant that is only made here in SA and then Cape Town. It was also limited numbers. I'll have a look and just see if I can get a picture of that, but that was also quite an awesome car for me as well. Something that I would love to get one day when I'm big and strong. But yeah, I'm gonna stop it right there. Thank you to Garage Gambles for this awesome video. Really informative. I hope it was informative to you. Some of the cars that was on here, I didn't even know it actually came from here. I really didn't know. Especially the very first, that Phantom. I mean, that was such a gorgeous car. And just this thing that came out of SA was crazy. So yeah. Let me know which kind of other videos you would like to see on this channel. I'm kind of really trying to explore which route I would like to go with these ones. If you want to see more informative things like this, reaction videos with informative things regarding cars, or if you would like to see something in regards to how the stance life in South Africa is. Either which way, I'm game for both of them. I'm trying to play around and see which one is, and this way I would need some of y'all guys to, you know, give a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It will really mean a lot to get this channel up and running. So for that, thanks a lot, fam. See you in the next one.
Yeah, you know I'm a beast. You know I'm a beast. Welcome to the feast. My whole team off the leash. We don't know defeat. Everybody eat. Hey, you know I'm a beast.